Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to thicken up your lead vocals. We're going to be talking about thickening up a lead vocal or combating thinness in lead vocals, but before we dive in, if you are ready to take your vocal mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your EQ strategy, then I have just the thing for you. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through how to EQ your vocals step by step to get you polished and professional sounding vocal mixes without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and look at combating a thin vocal line. So we've got a track here. It's just a piano vocal track. It's a pretty high song. It's pretty daunting vocally to sing. And something like this that's sitting up in a higher register with a lot of high notes. If you have any falsetto parts or some of those high notes that are kind of up there, the voice can get a little bit thin sounding. It's hard to get up there and keep all that weight and all that thickness in your voice. So sometimes we have to tuck a little bit of thickness underneath to make sure the vocal stays even, especially transitioning from a lower part to a much, much higher part. Let me play you what the vocal sounds like without this little vocal thick track that we have in there. And then we also have the vocal thickening trick. I'll pull that out as well. Just take a listen to this passage here. So we're going from this line, we got this line here, and then there's this line after it, but we're just touching this middle line here. So just want you to listen and hear what our vocal sounds like before our processing here.
Watch it else make my soul bleed. It's only love. Tell yourself it's only love.
So you can hear it's a pretty high song. He's getting way, way up there. But when he transitions from those lower, more aggressive parts to that really high part, we lose a little bit of weight and a little bit of thickness underneath. And we don't want it to seem like we're losing any power, because we're definitely not losing power. He's getting way up there. We're not losing power. We're just losing some of that thickness underneath. So the first thing I did was I put the vocal thickening trick in here underneath the whole track here. Let me play you the vocal thickening trick. You've probably seen me do this before. If you haven't, I will link to this video below so you can see how we do the vocal thickening trick here. Here's what just the vocal thickening trick sounds like underneath these couple lines here.
Watch it else make my soul bleed. It's only love. Make my soul bleed.
So that right there is going to give us a little bit more consistency thickness-wise. So when he transitions from that first part of the line into the second part of the line that's really way up there and kind of head voice, it's going to feel a little bit more consistent weight-wise. That's a hard one to say, weight-wise, because it's not going to feel like all that drops out, because we will have this vocal thickening trick underneath that stays pretty consistent down there in that range. So that helps us a little bit. Let's throw the vocal thickening trick in here underneath our lead vocal. We'll back up just a little bit here. Take a listen to this same line now with the vocal thickening trick tucked underneath.
They're only words. Watch it else make my soul bleed. It's only love.
That's feeling a little bit better. It feels a little bit more consistent between these two lines here. So what we're trying to do is make sure from this first part of the line to the second part here that it doesn't drop off in thickness or drop off in weight, because this is sang mostly in chest here, and then when we get up here, we're dipping up into that head voice to hit those notes that are way up there. So we want to make sure it's even across that and it doesn't suddenly get really thin sounding up there. That felt a little bit better with the vocal thickening trick in, but this one line to me was still standing out as thinner than the rest of this end part here, where he's really going for it. So what I did was I dragged this piece down here, just this one line down, copied it down to another track. If we open up our mix window here, we've got the same processing copied across, that's on our lead vocal here. So same processing here. I've just added a couple extra things underneath here. So you can see from multiband to multiband, same processing there. All I've done underneath is add this EQ first off, and then a little bit more EQ after it. So the first one here is isolating the lower part of the vocal here. So take a listen. We'll get rid of this last EQ here. We'll do without, and then I'll click this in. You can hear what part of the frequency range we are isolating here. So here's without.
Make my soul bleed. Make my soul bleed. Make my soul bleed.
So we're just isolating between about 400 and 100 hertz. So that's that lower part of his voice. That's where we want that thickness. That right there is the energy we want to pull up underneath to make it feel more consistent between the two lines that we are going into and from. So between this line and this line. This head is kind of head voice part right here that's way up there. We want to add some thickness underneath of it. So this is sounding good here, but that wasn't quite enough for me. So I added in this next plugin here. It's kind of an API style 550. You can see it's called Alpine 550 EQ. I do love this EQ, especially for boosting lows or highs like this. It also works really well in this kind of 1.5K area. But we're at the 200 hertz range here, so we're kind of midway between where we've isolated, and I'm boosting 6 dB. So take a listen without, and then I'll kick this in. Listen to that nice thickness and that weight that comes into our voice. It kind of blooms all together. So now we've got some nice thickness on just this vocal. So we have just one track that's just the thickness from our vocal. None of that high stuff, none of the pretty stuff, just that low mid area from 100 to 400 hertz, and then we're boosting the crap out of 200 hertz here. I did pull out one piece here at 233 hertz. There was 233 hertz. There was a little bit of ringing there, so pulled that out. If you encounter any kind of ringing, anything that's a little nasty down there in that low mid area, which you can, just notch it out. That's all I did there. So now we'll take this piece here and tuck it underneath our lead vocal. You can see we're only a dB and a half down from where our lead vocal's sitting. Normally it's sending into this bus, but we're only about a dB and a half down from where it normally sits here. So now take a listen between these two lines here. So going from this line into our higher line here. Listen to how it sits together a little bit more nicely.
Watch it hurls, make my soul bleed. It's only love.
Definitely pay attention. So the beginning of this line here, that first word right there, and then the beginning of this line here, listen to how they have the same weight and the same thickness to them now.
Watch it hurls, make my soul bleed. It's only love.
So that make and that word it on the next line feel coherent and they feel balanced together. It doesn't feel like one line is much thinner than the other, and it doesn't feel like we're lacking any power. So one more time without here, and then we'll kick it back in.
Watch it hurls, make my soul bleed. It's only love. Watch it hurls, make my soul bleed. It's only love.
So if you're battling some thinness on a line or maybe throughout your whole vocal, first thing I would say is throw in the vocal thickening trick. So that's what we have down here. That's our vocal thickening trick. Just our 3 tracks there pitched up and down. Then I wanted just this one line here, was giving me a little bit of trouble. It was feeling thinner than the lines surrounding it. So I copied this one line down. So duplicate track, right? Same processing that's on our lead vocal. And then after that, following that processing, I've isolated the low mid area and the low end on our vocal. So we're between 100 hertz and 400 hertz, notched out a little nasty frequency in there. And then after it, we're using this API style EQ, the 550 style EQ, and we're boosting the crap out of 200 hertz. That's giving us that nice low mid thickness on the vocal that we can tuck underneath to make it feel balanced across the board. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to level up your vocal mixes and really perfect your EQ strategy, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and you can download it below to start creating more professional vocal mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.